I am Misty Doan. Welcome to week 1 of what we are calling the Bloomerang Start to Finish project as part of our National Quilting Month.
Woohoo!
I am here with Liz. She is our familiar and friendly voice behind the camera on Missouri Star Live, and she has this great project that we're going to share with you, right?
Yes, and so it looks like this.
Isn't it so fun? So cute.
And the idea is that in the next 5 weeks on Mondays through March, which is National Quilting Month, we'll all make this project start to finish. So
Exactly.
everything from the cutting all the way to the binding.
Even the quilting.
Even the quilting.
That's
It's
right,
gonna be fun.
Exactly. So it's going to be really fun. So we're glad you guys can be here with us. Let's go over the supplies that we're going to need for this project.
Yes.
So do you want to dive into that, Liz?
Yes, so the first thing you have to do is pick your fabrics, but I also wanted to talk about a few of the things that you'll need as we go. So
Okay.
we're going to be doing some 4 patches. We're going to be doing a little bit of curved piecing. And so for curved piecing, there's going to be a diagram that you can use, but we also love a template because it makes cutting those pieces
So much easier.
easier.
Yeah.
So we have our small Missouri Star Drunkard's Path template. And then here in the center, we've got this really pretty applique, and that is very simply our petal.
Awesome.
So again, we'll have a diagram in our free printables all month, but you'll be able to use your petal if you have it, and that just makes cutting all these shapes that much easier because you've got that template to ride along as you're cutting with your rotary cutter instead of, sometimes the paper can be a little bit trickier, you have to go a little slower.
Exactly. All right.
All right.
Well, let's talk about choosing fabric then.
Yes. So we ended up deciding to go with batiks, but you can go with anything, and you can have permission to mix batiks and prints. You don't have to stick with one or the other.
There's no rules here.
No rules. So you want to go into your stash and pick out some fabrics. And we actually have a whole class here at Missouri Star called Stash Busting with Style to help you choose the fabrics from your stash if you're picking a bunch of different things and not using just a pre-cut. And so one of the things that we looked at when we were using that was something that's a bit of a larger print, some smaller prints, and definitely some contrast here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 focal fabrics that we ended up choosing, and then a background. And when we chose these, we decided that a black background would actually help them to pop even more than a white background. And I know, Misty, a lot of times you'll use a colorful background on the quilts you're doing. So how do you decide what background you're going to use?
I usually actually test that out. I'll kind of lay a piece of my dark background or a light background next to the colors that I'm playing with, and I just kind of decide which one really makes the colors sing. And usually it's as simple as that. One of them really brings the colors to life and makes them pop, or makes the design of the project pop, and so that's usually the one that I go with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we were looking at is all the colors that are in here can be something to pull from. So we chose a bunch of different batiks, and these do all happen to be in the same line. And so we've got a link for that if you want to make this exact project. But what we saw was we picked a couple of colors that were kind of close together, and we decided we had to choose one or the other so that they wouldn't compete.
That makes sense, yeah, because you want to make sure that each one of them stands out in their own way.
Yes, so we ended up going with this one and deciding to pull this one out.
Left it aside.
Yep, and so we ended up with these fabrics to start our project.
All right.
Okay, so the next thing you have to do is start cutting. And so the very simple parts we'll actually cut as we go for these inner parts with the applique and the curved piecing, but these outer parts we can start with first so that we can get a 4-patch started and get started today.
All
on this
right,
project.
and so to make those 4 patches, we're going to start with 5-inch squares, right?
Yep.
So we're going to need how many 5-inch squares?
So we're going to need 1, I believe, 5-inch square of the, we're going to call this the teal.
Okay.
And then 1 5-inch square of the green. And then we're going to need 2 5-inch squares of the background.
Okay.
So I'll pull all of these
To the side.
fabrics to the side.
And so let's talk about making 4 patches then. This is really simple. And so we're going to pair our print fabric with our background squares, and we can just set those together like so. And then we're actually going to start by sewing on opposite sides a 1/4-inch seam on both of those. And so let's take this to the machine and do that.
And I love this method because you get multiples at once instead of having to cut down all of your squares into 2.5-inch squares and sew them all together.
Yeah, it makes it much faster.
Yep.
And I'm just going to put this next one in behind. Do a little bit of chain piecing.
And we're using a white thread so you can see. You could choose to use a darker thread to blend in with your background when you're piecing. Most of the time the piecing is inside the quilts, right? So nobody's going to go looking inside your quilt to see what color thread you use. But if you see it poking out and it bothers you, you can adjust the color to make it look better to you.
Yeah, I do find that when you're working with dark fabrics, I tend to like having a darker thread, but we wanted to make sure you guys could see what we were doing. There we go. So we've sewn both of those.
Okay. So I'll just clip those apart.
All right.
And then go for the ruler hiding under here.
And a rotary cutter.
Okay.
All right. So now we're just going to cut these exactly in half. And so since we have a 5-inch square, we need to have the 2.5-inch measurement right along the side of our block. And we can just cut. And Liz, if you want to press those to the dark side. And then I will cut this other one as well.
And then for us, the dark side is the background, but if you're using a lighter background, you might be pressing towards the colorful square.
Here's these guys as well. Sewing with a friend is really the best.
Right?
It's nice to have someone helping with all of the pressing and the cutting. Okay, so now we're going to put these so that our prints are on opposite sides, and then we're going to put them right sides together. And we're just going to make sure that these nest. And you can see mine are a little bit off, but I'm just going to use my outside because I can still catch this in my 1/4-inch seam. And so I'm just going to use my 1/4-inch seam, my 1/4-inch guide, and now we're going to actually turn it this way, and we're going to sew on the opposite side. So we're kind of making an H with our stitching. So we're going to sew again on opposite sides, 1/4-inch seam.
And I'll nest this other one up for you while you're doing that.
Thanks, Liz.
Yep. I'm going to trim off these threads.
There we go.
So line that one up. And line that one up.
Alrighty. And then that one's ready to trim down.
Okay. So Misty's sewing down the edge of that. I'm going to line up my ruler here. I'm actually going to put this up here so you can see. I'm going to line up 2.5 on the outside. And use my lines to make sure it's all nice and square. And we'll cut that just like that. And then when you open,
beautiful
four patch. So
I love
press those open.
I'll cut these ones. Almost cut those to 3. Had to check myself really quick. There we go.
Measure twice, cut once.
That's exactly right.
All right. So that's created all 4 patches. And those are your 4 corners
that you need for this beautiful big block. That is awesome. So you can see here where the 4 patches are going to go. And so that's our start for week 1, right?
That's it.
Okay, so now that's our completed week 1. You've learned how to make easy 4 patches, and join us next week to tackle these great curves.
Yep.
We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.